Hello friends and viewers, and welcome to my Bitterwort character guide. My name is James, I'm a global player and I started playing Sword of Convallaria in September 2024. I'm a longtime strategy and turn-based RPG fan with the Fire Emblem series, Tactics Ogre, and Unicorn Overlord as some recent titles I enjoy. I'm a PvE focused player in Sword of Convallaria. I have no interest or knowledge of PvP. As a global player, I lack the technical knowledge and exposure to the Taiwan and China scenes. As a result, I'm subject to feedback and I'm open to being wrong. If you come across conflicting information to other guides and creators, then there are absolutely multiple ways to play a character. Play your way. As a fun fact about myself, I am a Thai tea boba enjoyer. Bitterwort's trait is the same as her name, Bitterwort. Bitterwort is an external buff that triggers when a character is in a dying state after being attacked, recovering 40% of their HP. Mechanically, think of this as a weaker but still very effective external resolve. Her initial skill is Bitter Medicine. Bitter Medicine heals for 40% of the target's HP. Because this skill scales with the target's HP, it means its power does not scale with Bitterwort's stats or gear outside of items that specifically increase healing effects. At base value, this makes Bitter Medicine one of the strongest and most efficient single target heals in the game, but it cannot benefit from attack buffs that magic attack scaling healing can. At 1 energy cost, with no cooldown, Bitterwort can hypothetically cast this every single turn. At rank 1, I recommend Inner Light. At 1 energy cost, Inner Light can and should return more energy to your allies than Bitterwort spends. As an instant cast, Bitterwort can follow up with a basic attack or another skill. Bitterwort is a support watcher with a base speed of 80. Using attack command limits party movement, and her low base speed means your damage dealers with higher speed have to fight around Bitterwort or else she will fall behind the party. Attack command also cannot stack with other users of attack command or Gloria's flag-waving aura. Inner Light has more flexible range and usage, and its energy regen on allies can return more than a plus 12% attack buff can. At rank 3, I recommend Luxite Shrapnel. You may already be familiar with Luxite Shrapnel if you have been playing with other Luxite Shrapnel casters. Luxite Shrapnel dealing damage based on the target's HP means it is not dependent on Bitterwort's gear or stats, so even outside of a full Luxite Shrapnel group, it is still a capable damaging skill on its own or with other infection dealers. Just be mindful of Bitterwort's base speed and movement, and maneuver or protect her carefully if you're using her to kite. Police Lasso inflicts restraint, reducing a target speed by 100 and makes them unable to move. It also inflicts attack and assist debuffs, and the stun effect comes into play when using other units that inflict restraint. This skill can be used to lock down a priority target, but full use of this skill is somewhat dependent on team composition. Note Police Lasso will lose value on enemies that possess immunity to disrupt and bound effects. At rank 5, I recommend Curse. While the buff from Endurance activation does mitigate more damage than Curse, there are not effective ways for Bitterwort to trigger Endurance activation on herself. To heal herself, she needs to self-cast Bitter Medicine, cast Can't Give Up, an expensive skill with herself in the healing radius, or trigger the Bitterwort buff, and whatever triggered Bitterwort probably was not mitigated. Curse provides a constant 8% damage taken decrease from active attacks. Additionally, the Bitterwort buff incentivizes being attacked, so with Bitterwort and Curse, you can afford more risk to spread vulnerable to debuffs. Select Endurance activation if you feel comfortable and capable with maintaining 100% uptime. Keep in mind, Endurance activation loses value when you have external sources of damage reduction too, but Curse also loses value when you have additional sources of vulnerable to debuffs. At rank 7, I recommend Can't Give Up. Can't Give Up is Bitterwort's only learnable AoE heal scaling with her magic attack. With a 2-turn uptime and a 4-turn cooldown, it has a hypothetical 50% uptime. With the attack and regeneration buffs, and any allies pre-buffed with Bitterwort, your party can afford more risk to engage enemies. Granting Bitterwort to 2 allies with the lowest HP percentage in battle also enables a safety net for them to live another turn. Quick Bandaging is a small single target heal followed by Bitterwort's only learnable Dispel. This skill is set back by its 3-turn cooldown, and you cannot control the efficiency of its dispel. While Bitterwort lacks innate dispel abilities otherwise, it is easier to make up for it by equipping her with gear that have dispelling capabilities. Quick bandaging is best used in single target scenarios where only one unit is taking majority of damage. At rank 9, your options are Merciful Strike or Disarm Strike. If you're playing Bitterwort primarily for healing, select Merciful Strike. You can also have her strike objects to buff the next healing skill. If you're playing Bitterwort primarily for Luxite Shrapnel and other support, select Disarm Strike. However, be mindful the Attack 1 debuff loses value when you field other units and inflict Attack 1 or higher debuffs. My pick here is Merciful Strike. This is my general build recommendation with Merciful Strike, Curse, Can't Give Up, Bitter Medicine, and Inner Light. This initial loadout focuses on healing, spreading Bitterwort, and energy regen. In scenarios where you want to use Luxite Shrapnel, substitute any skill most appropriate for the situation. For weapons, I recommend Reorganized Cube. Reorganized Cube adds dispel utility to her support skills and increases her healing. Starry Sky Heritage is fine for general use, but should eventually be replaced by Reorganized Cube. For Taros, you can consider Fancy Hat to protect her skill usage, Disaster Bottle to provide debuff support to your team, or Spring Pill for some personal self-sustain. You will primarily use Bitterwort as a support unit. Recall several of her skills do not have stat or gear scaling, so it can be sufficient to use any trinket as a stat stick. For Taros, consider Mercy of the High Priestess to increase her healing, Elegance of the Empress to support allies with debuff conversion, or Redemption of the Judgment to dispel enemies and inflict the Judgment debuff. For Engravings, my only recommendation is Double Cup to increase healing and healing received. To provide some composition and usage tips, as iterated, because Bitterwort, the buff, and Bitter Medicine heal based off of the target's HP, Bitterwort, the character, can easily be integrated as a healer to any team composition without being overly dependent on level, rank, and gear. However, this does mean she is less affected by stat buffs. Bitterwort is part of the Night Crimson, Iria, and Discipline categories. While we do not yet have a unique Night Crimson Leader's Aura with her release, consider pairing her with Dantalion, Akambe, and/or Leonide for their Leader's Auras. For external category buffs, Dantalion provides a great aura for an Irian team, but be mindful that Bitterwort herself offers limited debuffs to contribute to the count requirement. Xavier and KA Fire Conjurer possess the Battle Flag of Iria, but I recommend Dantalion's, Akambe's, or Leonide's Leader's Auras instead if possible. Inanna brings the skill Soulmate. While Bitterwort may not directly benefit from the attack and defense buffs from the support line, her presence is still welcome to contribute to the increased co-attack and co-defense target count. In the Discipline category, we have Akambe and Leonide. Their aura will reduce the cooldown of Can't Give Up from 4 turns to 3 turns. However, Bitterwort cannot take advantage of the allied summon unit buff from Akambe. This concludes my character guide. As mentioned in my disclaimer, I welcome feedback and I'm open to being wrong. I'm still learning and improving just like you are. Once again, if you find conflicting information to other guides or content creators, then that means there are multiple ways to build a character and still achieve success. If you have any feedback for me, please feel welcome to comment below. I also have my various social media platforms on this slide here. Last but not least, I want to credit and shout out these resources that helped me put this guide together. Voyage Memento for their character build samples and reference links, the Sword of Convallaria No Potion fan site for skill images and skill descriptions, the Sword of Convallaria Cloud Drop Wiki for skill filtering and gear images, and the Billy Game and Game Key Chinese sites for character art assets. I highly recommend visiting these links to build your Sword of Convallaria knowledge. Thank you so much for watching this character guide, and I will see you in the next one.